call to all Nikon users. Any Nikon user who is interested in a Z, is entertaining a Z, or who owns a Z. I want to get some data together because I get a lot of people telling me that the Z's dead, baby. Z's dead. G'day everybody, I've been out on a shoot. It's almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees centigrade. I was on location. Once that was done, I decided to come on down to the warehouse, which is where we are now. Had to do some printing. Now I wanted to share some thoughts that I had about the Nikon Z and the overall business. What does it mean? What does it mean for a business to have to go through down market and massive development? Let's go upstairs and talk about that. Today I wanted to talk about something that's very important to me. I've put out a couple of videos over the last few weeks talking about largely Nikon. There's a lot of energy in the world around the notion that, well, Nikon is on its last legs and it's the end of the world. I don't feel that way about it. I really don't feel that way about it. I've run my own business for 30 years. I've never had a cent of external funding. And part of running a business is going through highs and going through lows. Going through the odd period of time, sometimes, when you invest a lot and it means that year you don't turn an actual profit. So it is a simplistic notion to look at Nikon and say it's over. If we go back to the graphs, we can see that the industry was down low, and then it's had this massive peak about 10 years ago. And then it's been in decline because, one, people weren't interested as much as they were. When digital photography first started, everybody wanted to be and thought they were going to be a photographer. And then that has slowly waned. And then the next thing that happened, of course, was the smartphone. And those two things together, one, the decline of adoption in general, and the epic rise of the smartphone, have meant we are going to go back to a market that was similar to the 70s or the 80s. Now, we had all these camera companies plus more back then making cameras and running their businesses. And what these companies are doing is they've had a trajectory that's been based on epic turnover, epic profits. And they've got to restructure and restructure and restructure to get back to a business size and model that fits what's going on today. Now, nobody ever knows exactly how many of anything you're going to sell each year. Getting that balance right is not the easiest thing. Getting your stock control right is not the easiest thing. Getting your product mix right is not always the easiest thing. This is a conversation about business and the way business has to respond and react, and that you could have 3 years in a row. You could have 3 years in a row where Nikon are not turning a profit. It does not mean it's the end. It's just not as simple as that. There's so much more to it. Nikon's strategy, to me, makes perfect sense. As a professional who bought a Nikon D850 in 2017, there is now a 4-year horizon, which takes us out to 2021, before we would expect an updated D850. So that gives Nikon from now, 2020 and 2021, to get the Z D850 replacement out. It makes perfect sense. I'm a D850 owner, user. I expect a 4-year horizon. That's what I expect it to take. I don't expect it to be any quicker. And if you bought a D850, you are well and truly looked after in the business of making stills.
So that's why Nikon created the Z6 and the Z7 sitting there in the middle for people like me.
We like to understand the technology, get into the technology. We give it a go, we give it a try. And it's amazing. And you've got this glass that's it's amazing and it's affordable. I'm going to have 4 primes soon, and those 4 primes have cost me in Australia under $4,000. And those primes are the best the world has seen at this f-stop. Yet they're far cheaper than 1.4 lenses. I think the biggest thing in the room around this subject is, which everyone very easily forgets, is that Nikon have been running the F-mount as their flagship mount since the 50s. It's a very, very long time. Same mount, supporting it, running it. They haven't had to do any R&D or anything around that mount. It's been the same. Technology they had in their lenses, all of the intellectual property they have around doing what they do was all F-mount based. And in the space of just the last couple of years, whilst the industry is going down, they've had to invest heavily, up. They've had to invest. And that costs a lot of money. And that investment in this new mount means retooling factories, retraining staff, and so on and so forth. And that is a massive cost. At the start is where the cost is highest. And they are going through this process. It's probably been going on for, my guess is, about 4 years. This process has been going on. And of course, a lot of it was R&D and making prototypes. Now they have to invest hard in the actual factories and actually making lenses and cameras. So the cost to Nikon and Canon are in the same boat as they transition from old to new is immense. And we don't know what percentage of their expenses is just that growth, just that change, just that retooling, just that R&D, just getting inventory of the Z line up to speed. But it might be 20%, might be 30%, which means once that flattens out, that 30% comes out of the books because they've got all that stuff up and running. This is a call to all Nikon users. Any Nikon user who is interested in a Z, is entertaining a Z, or who owns a Z. I want to get some data together because I get a lot of people telling me that the Z is failing. They're telling me the Z is failing. Yet I talk to hundreds of people within my feed. I get thousands of views on videos about Nikons, and I can see some of my YouTube colleagues, when they create a video about a Z6 or a Z7, they get hundreds of thousands of views. That's hundreds of thousands of people who are interested. And I can't imagine all of them are Sony users who just want to make comments in the thread. I do think probably a higher percentage of those people are actually real Nikon users who are interested. So this is a shout out to Nikon users. I want to hear from you. I want to have a sense of how many of us are there out there. Now, I'm a tiny channel, so I won't have the reach, but I really hope this video gets out to as many people as possible so you can give me feedback. And the feedback is this. I want to know if you own a Z. I want to know if you're going to buy a Z soon. I want to know if you're thinking about buying a Z at all or not. And then I'd love to know on top of that, how many lenses would you get a year? 1, 2? How many would it be? Because I just want to get a sense of the real financial picture here. Because there's a lot of... This is the thing about businesses. We from the outside can look at their revenue and their profit and reviews. And that's it. That is the only data points we have to look at. And there is so much more to it than just those data points. It's crazy how much more there is to it. A shout out to all Nikon users. Also, I mean, there are probably some people out there, and I've read a few of these people in my comments sections. There are people who are in other systems, and I've even had a couple of Sony people, and I don't want Sony people to jump on my head. Go read the comments. You can see for yourselves. I'm not making this up. I've had a few Sony people say, yep, I was on Sony and I've actually gone to Nikon Z. So that's interesting, isn't it? We all know there's more people going in the other direction, so don't worry, Sony users. This is not me having a go at Sony. I'm actually just genuinely interested in data. The business of running a multi-billion-dollar business, which is what this is right now, it's a lot of money. These are not small businesses. Even now, in their depressed state,
We're still talking US $6.3 billion of annual turnover.
that's a lot of cash. And if you shut a factory, if you cut product lines, if you shed 10% of your staff around the world, these things make a massive difference. They make a massive difference to profit or not profit. It's so much more complicated, and I really want people to think before they type. I really do. And another thing I want to say, there's a lot of talk about, oh, Nikon, they've made the wrong move. They made the wrong choices with lenses and camera lineups. And again, I disagree. So if you're a professional, you own a D850 or a D5 or a D500, it's 2017, it's the end of 2017, you've bought your D850. Some people are still buying their D850s today. It's going to be 2021, the earliest, before anyone would expect their D850 to be replaced.
Now, if you're like me and you've actually got a use case,
For the Z7, you're actually interested in what it has to offer, and for me it's largely about video and its video capabilities, then the Z7 makes a lot of sense. It's going to have raw video out. It has full 35mm 4K video.
It has an amazing lens lineup. It's got in-body stabilization.
It's a great stills camera. It's up there optically. It's up there sensor-wise.
With the D850,
Probably slightly better, and of course optically if you're using the Z class, it is better.
it makes perfect sense. It's a great camera. Here it is. You can use it. If you're a professional and you don't like some of the things that it does, stick with your D850. It's not supposed to be replaced until 2021.
Why are all these other people not cool? I just don't get it. It's perfectly logical. You've got lenses you can get into and learn about the system, and they're great lenses, great bang for buck. And there's this gentle transition over 4 years from F to Z. It just all makes sense. I just don't understand. I don't understand all the angst. A call to all Nikon users, please. I'd love to know. I'd love you to share with me where you're going, what your thoughts are. Are you an F, you're thinking Z? Are you already Z and you're loving it? Are you a Z and you're frustrated? You're a Z, what do you think of the lenses? I want to collect some data. This is not about saying Nikon versus whoever. I actually just want to understand, because I hear this, the Z's a failure, the Z's not selling. And I don't think that's true, but people say it. So I want to hear from you. And I want to fill the comments up where there's many people saying Z, whatever you want, pro or con. I just want to hear what your Z plans are. I want to hear how many pieces of glass do you reckon you'll get per year? Love to know that. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching. It's been so good to see you. I'd love to learn more about the Z out there in the universe. I'm a relatively small channel, so this won't get out too far. So this is a prime example, and I'm genuine from my heart. Would love you to like it, because that'll get it out there further. I'd love you to comment, because that'll get it out there further. And I'd love you to share it. That's the most important thing. Get it out there further. I really want to hear from the Nikon Z community and the Nikon F community. And anyone else. You might actually be a person who's in another brand and you're thinking about the Z. You might be. I'd love to hear from you too. All right. Thanks. It's hot. I got to go. See ya.